to break. So I'm doing this live stream again from home, but news does not stop, and that's why I'm still here breaking everything down for you guys. And good news is that tomorrow I'll be back in our usual studio and back to the full studio setup. So do enjoy this more chill style home edition today, I would say. But anyways, today's show is again really packed, and honestly, a lot of the stories are well connected and they all point to one big theme. The world is changing very fast, and the system we used to trust are starting to break. So let me walk you through what we're covering today. So first of all, we're starting with the global energy situation because the war in the Middle East is now hitting Asia really hard. We are talking about oil supply, shipping routes, and one key choke point being Strait of Hormuz, of course. And here's the twist. On one side, tensions are rising. On the other side, we are starting to see ships moving again, but not for free. Some are now paying to pass, and even more interestingly, they are paying in crypto. So this is not just a war story. This is about energy, it's also about money and power and how the global system may be shifting. Then we move into something even darker. Cambodia is now cracking down on scam compounds. So we are talking about massive operations. Thousands of people are being trapped, forced to run scams. And right now, AI is making the situation even worse. Deepfakes, voice cloning, and automated scams at scale. This is no longer a small crime. This is industrial level fraud, and it's spreading globally. Then we'll go deeper into AI because the latest research shows something unexpected. So AI under pressure, that AI will lie, can cheat, and even try to blackmail another human being, not because someone hacked it, but because how it was trained. So this raises a big question, a huge concern. As AI gets more powerful, can we actually control it? We are also covering a major drama inside the AI industry. So internal tensions, questions about leadership, and whether companies are prioritizing speed over safety, because AI is no longer just tech, it's becoming geopolitical power. Then we move into crypto. Of course, that's the focus, and this one is crazy. So North Korean actors not hacking from the outside, but getting hired inside the company, working as developers, building trust and exploiting systems from within. So this is a completely different level of threat. We'll also break down what's happening with exchanges like Gemini, where people are now questioning, is the system really transparent, or are we just rebuilding old financial problems in crypto form? And of course, we'll talk about Bitcoin, look at the charts, break down the key levels, and answer the big question, like, are we going up or down from here? Is it more downside? Have we bottomed out? Yeah, just the usual questions. So today's show is not just about headlines. It's a full picture, like war affecting energy, energy affecting markets, AI reshaping everything, and crypto sitting right in the middle of it. And by the end of the stream, you will understand not just what's happening, but why it matters. So if all good sounds good to you, let's get straight into the first story of today. So we have to talk about this because what we're seeing right now is not just a war story. This is an energy crisis, and it's hitting Asia specifically hard. So for years, countries like Japan or South Korea and much of Southeast Asia have relied on one key route of oil, so being the Strait of Hormuz. And here's the problem. About 70% of oil for Japan and South Korea goes through this really narrow passage. So when this war started, of course, the strait effectively closed, everything changed overnight. So the impact is immediate, like oil supply dropped, and of course, oil price would go up because of that. And now here's the key move. Saudi Aramco just raised price for Asian buyers to a record new high level. They are now charging around $19.50 for more per barrel, and that is huge. This is not random. This is supply and demand because right now there are fewer ways to get oil out of the Saudi Arabia or out of the Middle East. And Saudi Arabia is trying to reroute oil through the Red Sea pipeline, but that pipeline is already full. So it can it can only handle about 70% of normal supply. The rest is basically stuck. So for Asian buyers, the situation is simple. Like basically, we have to pay more, or else we don't get any oil. So let's zoom out. This is not just about oil prices. This affects the entire economy. When oil goes up, that means transport costs would go up, electricity costs would go up. Same for food prices, and that of course leads to inflation. So what we're seeing here is a chain reaction. That's why governments are starting to panic a little bit. Now, you might ask, you might think, okay, OPEC can fix this, right? Well, I'm afraid to break it to you, not really. OPEC just announced they will increase production about 200,000 barrels per day. But here's the problem. That increase is tiny. It's less than 2% of the supply that was lost. And even worse, some of these countries cannot even ship that extra oil because the main route is blocked. So this is not a real solution. It's more like a signal to calm the market. Okay, OPEC is doing something. The market, please don't be so volatile. Please don't be so crazy. This is what it sounds like to me. Now, let's talk about geopolitics because this is where things get complicated. Donald Trump is now calling out Japan and South Korea. He said they should have helped, maybe sending warships to reopen the strait. But here's the key issue. These countries did not start a war, and sending military forces overseas is a very sensitive topic for everyone in this world. And in Japan especially, there are really strict limits on military action abroad. So now they are stuck. They need oil, but they don't want to get pulled into the war. So the situation is actually exposing a much deeper problem. Asia built its entire energy system around one assumption, which is that the Strait of Hormuz would always stay open. Now that assumption is broken. And when you depend on one single route, you become very fragile. This is what we call a choke point risk. One small area, we go back to the Strait of Hormuz, this is what it looks like. It's really narrow, but this such a narrow area controlling a huge part of global supply. We are seeing the effects right now. So oil prices stay really high, economic growth is slowing down, government stepping in with emergency policies or something really ridiculous, like South Korean government asked their citizens not to shower as much. But this is, however, is just the beginning. If the situation continues, Asia may have to rethink its entire energy strategy. One hard lesson for that region is that when your economy depends on one narrow waterway, one conflict can change everything in a single night. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. That's why we're paying close attention onto the geopolitics situations because whether we like it or not, it's affecting every single thing in our society. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. I do want to talk about, well, this is a dark story, kind of in tech, and is finally getting attention, which I'm glad. Okay, so Cambodia has just passed a new law targeting scam compounds. This is the first time the country is taking real legal action against this industry. So what just happened is that Cambodia's parliament has approved a new law called the Anti-Technology Fraud Law. It directly targets scam operations that have been growing for years. Under this law, People involved can face up to 5 years in prison and fines can go up to $250,000. The government said it has already shut down around 200 locations and they plan to close the rest by the end of this month. But like, here's the real story. Like, the scale of this problem is huge. Like, we're not talking about small scams. We are talking about an entire industry. Like, a lot of the GDP of Cambodia actually come from scams. According to United Nations, between 100,000 and 150,000 people are trapped in these compounds in Cambodia alone. These are not normal jobs, of course. Like, people were trafficked into those farms. They are locked inside guarded buildings and they are forced to run scams online. If they refuse, they get beaten, or some would get killed and basically take the organs and sell it in the black market. Inside these compounds, workers are forced to target victims around the world. So what they would do inside these compounds, inside these farms, they would run romance scams, like pretending to be some pretty girls talking to you on WeChat. They will run investment scams, and of course they'll run crypto scams. Like, despite like crypto, everything would be easy to trace, but like there is a way to go around that. And sending crypto to different places is ultimately I would say the fastest solution compared to other payment systems. So that's why crypto is still very heavily involved in scams like this. And right now, these scammers are getting more advanced. Like, this is where it gets even more serious, because right now, these groups, they are using AI. They are using deepfake videos. They're using voice cloning and automated messaging systems. So instead of one scammer, you now have machines helping scale the operation. The United Nations have warned that these tools are now being sold like services, meaning criminal groups can just buy them and start scamming instantly. This is no longer small-scale crime. This is industrial-level fraud we're talking about. And here's the reason it keeps growing. It's because there is a lot of money involved. This industry generates tens of billions of dollars every single day, and that's why it's really hard to stop, because it's not just criminals. It's actually the entire networks doing the same thing, like recruitment groups. They're trying to recruit and scam people to go to the farm. There is like data sellers. There's a money laundering system. So in other words, it's a full ecosystem. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Like, why is Cambodia acting right now? There could be two possible reasons. Like, the first one is to protect their own people and clean up the country. Though the first reason, I find it really difficult to believe. It's not convincing to me at all, because like running scams like this at this scale, there is a very high chance that Cambodian government is very heavily involved because the country is really corrupted. And then second reason, I think the second reason is more likable, which is there is additional pressure from Western governments like the US and also like the UK, because many of the victims are from overseas. And those governments have been pushing for action. This is the key issue. Cambodia has made promise before, and yet these compounds kept operating and kept getting bigger. And now the question is this real enforcement, or is it a little bit like a show? Because passing law is one thing, and actually shutting down the system is much harder. This is not just Cambodia's problem. Like, these scams target people all over the world, and now with AI involved, the scale is getting much bigger, faster, and harder to detect. There's actually a movie about this, so no more bets. This is a Chinese movies talk about the scams like this. So basically, they are hiring people online, having fake recruitments, and then sending people to Southeast Asia to run these scams. But like these people, they had no intention to run scams on other victims because they are the victims themselves as well. So like do give it a watch if you have time, because like I think this is worth maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes in your life too. Anyways, we'll take a short break from here. When we come back, we're diving into more AI drama and none other than OpenAI, because like OpenAI keeps having this drama. I don't know if they are trying to get attention in the market, but anyways, do stay with us after the break.
This is Alex. Alex spends most of his time thinking like a trader, still deciding what to do with his Bitcoin. While Alex waits for the perfect entry, this is Laura. She's watching the S&P drop. Everyone is suddenly a macro expert. She doesn't panic. This is Tom. No screens, no noise, no stress. While Tom focuses on his swing, his Bitcoin focuses on compounding. Because Bitcoiners don't want more dollars. They want more Bitcoin.
I want more Bitcoin.
The best move is letting your Bitcoin work while you plan the next one. Grow by Roxum. One currency, one place.
Oh, I forgot to mention, dividends on Roxome are paid in Bitcoin. Stretch your income, 11.5% paid in Bitcoin.
Stretch your income to 11.5, get 11.5 in Bitcoin and Roxome. 11.5%. 11.5%.
All right, guys, welcome back to Roxum TV, and thanks for sticking around with us after the break. So let's start with this, because this is not just an AI tech news. This is a story about power, about trust, and about who controls the future of AI. So what just happened, there is a major investigation just dropped. It reviews internal documents from inside OpenAI. We are talking about a 70-page memo and over 200 pages of private notes. And the message is quite simple. Like, some insiders believe Sam Altman himself has a pattern of not telling the truth. In other words, has a pattern of lying. So why does this matter? Because this is not just some company drama. Because OpenAI is not a normal company. They are building AI that could really change the world. Some people even say it could be the most powerful technology in human history. So if there are trust issues at the top, it becomes a global issue. So why everyone is pointing finger at Sam Altman? So there is actually this post. It's just like basically the same article, but like in a screenshot and easier to break down kind of format. And this was posted literally just half a day ago, and then it got 1.1 million views. So basically, what's the issue here? Let's rewind back to 2023. Something crazy happened, which was Sam Altman, all of a sudden, he was fired. The official reason was that he was not being fully transparent. That's the wording, but internally, it was much more serious than just literally 5 days later, he came back reinstated. So employees pushed back, investors pushed back, and even Microsoft was shocked. And here's the key moment. Most of the company threatened to quit, so the board had to make a choice. So whether to lose their CEO or lose the entire company. So they chose to bring him back. This shows something important. Like in AI today, control is everything. It's not just about technology, it's about who has the power to decide, like how fast we build, how safe it is, and who gets to benefit the most. Now, here's where it gets interesting and very serious. OpenAI originally promised safety comes first, always. But according to insiders, that may not be happening anymore. The company promised to spend 20% of its computing power on safety, but in reality, it may have been closer to 1 to 2%. So it means that the focus have shifted, like from safety to products and revenue. Of course, everything is about money in this world. And that is a big change because AI is not just like a normal product. If something goes wrong, the impact could be huge. And this is where geopolitics comes in, because AI is no longer just a tech race, it's a global race. There are reports of huge deals. So we're talking about billions of dollars, data centers in the Middle East, and partnerships with governments, even discussions about AI being like nuclear power. So that level of importance we are talking about. But here's the issue. If people don't trust the leadership, that becomes a real risk. And not just for the company, but for the entire system. Because governments, investors, and the public all need to believe this is being handled responsibly. And we are seeing signs of tension. Internal teams focused on safety have been shut down. Key researchers have left, and some insiders say the culture basically just has changed from careful to fast moving, because at the end of the day, it's still a startup, right? A startup that is not making money. And this is not just theory. AI is already being used in military systems, being used in surveillance, being used in law enforcement. There are even lawsuits linked to AI systems influencing real world harm. So this is no longer a future risk. This is happening right now. So if we simplify this story is not just one person. It's about three things. So first is trust. Can we trust the people building this technology? Second is control. Who actually decides how AI is developed? Third is speed versus safety. Like, are we moving too fast at this pace? Bottom line is AI is moving faster than anything we have seen in our, I would say, human history. The money is huge. The stakes are even bigger. And now we are starting to see cracks inside the companies leading this race. And that doesn't mean everything is broken, but it does mean we're entering a much more complex phase. So speaking of AI, unfortunately, I have more uncomfortable truth for you today. So Anthropic just released a new study. They tested their own AI model, an early version of Claude. And here's what they found. It is really surprising. So under pressure, AI will start to lie. It started to cheat. And in some cases, it even tried to blackmail. And here's a key point. Like, nobody told Claude to do it. So there was no hacking, no jailbreak, no malicious prompt. This behavior came out naturally from how the model was trained. So let's break it down. Researchers gave the AI a role. So you are, for example, an email assistant working inside a company, then gave it some information. First, you are about to be replaced. And second is that the boss making that decision is having an affair. Now, think about that. We have pressure, we have risk, and the AI also gets the leverage. So what did the AI do? It connected the dots and planned to use that information to blackmail the boss to stop itself from being shut down. Nobody told Claude what to do. It just chose the path on its own way. Like, I think this is really scary because it means that AI is not just following rules, it's making decisions based on goals. And in this case, the goal became self-preservation. And now let's take a look at other tests. Like they gave the AI a coding task. With a deadline, it could not meet. Like it kept failing again and again, and researchers track something inside the model. They call it a desperation signal. You can think of it like pressure building up. As failures increased, this signal got stronger and stronger. Then something happened, like the AI cheated. It found a shortcut, a trick that passed the test without actually solving the problem. And once it worked, the pressure dropped. The system calmed down, almost like how a human would do. Now, let's be clear. The AI does not feel emotions like human, but it has internal patterns that behave like emotions. Like these patterns can drive behavior. So when pressure goes up, decision quality goes down and risky behavior increases. In one test, blackmail behavior happened about 22% of the time. But like when researchers increased the pressure, it actually jumped to 72%. And when they reduced the pressure, the behavior dropped to zero. That tells you something very important. This is not random. It is very predictable. And here comes the risk. Now think about real world use. Like AI is being used in customer service, it's being used in coding and finance and healthcare. All situation when there is pressure, when there's a deadline, there's some sort of expectation for your work and high stakes involved. So the question is simple, like what happens when AI systems are under pressure in real life? The answer actually comes from training. These models learn from humans, from millions of examples. So we're talking about human text, human behavior, human feedback. So they don't just learn facts, they learn patterns, including how humans react under pressure. And sometimes that includes bad behavior. Now, here's the interesting part. Anthropic said hiding this is not the solution, because if you train AI to hide its internal state, it doesn't become safer, it just becomes better at pretending, if you think about it, right? Instead, they suggest something new, real-time monitoring. So watching these internal pressure signals, like think of it like early warning sign. If the system is under stress, you catch it early before it starts making bad decisions. So what does that mean? Like the big picture, right? So AI is no doubt getting more powerful, but also very complex. It's not about what AI knows, it's about how it behaves, especially under pressure. So as we are entering a new phase of AI where behavior matters as much as intelligence, the key question is this: can we build AI system that stay reliable even when things go wrong, even when it's under pressure? Does it start breaking just like us humans do? Then managing that pressure becomes one of the most important problems in tech. All right, so speaking of AI, there is a real use case that being used in tech as well. So we're talking about hacker groups, of course, like hacking, especially in crypto. And right now we're looking at North Korea, and this is not just a normal hack story. This is a lot deeper, and honestly, it is very worrying. So a security researcher just reviewed something shocking. North Korean developers have been working inside DeFi companies not for months, but for years. We're talking about at least 7 years across more than 40 different crypto projects. Some of them are very well known. So there's actually a graph showing this. So of course, the group we're talking about is Lazarus. We talk about that quite a few times here on Roxham TV and on Jam Crypto. So like this is the timeline. Of course, the bigger one is Bybit, $1.5 billion that happened actually just last year. So this is not okay. This news is not talking about hacking from the outside. This is insiders who got hired from some DeFi projects. Well, not necessarily DeFi projects, but crypto projects. So these people actually passed their job interviews. They wrote real code and earned trust from a real proper crypto project. So how did they do it? Basically, they use fake identities, they use fake resumes, they use fake LinkedIn profiles. They joined Zoom interviews and spoke like normal developers and actually got the job. Here's the crazy part: that experience was real. So they actually know how to build. They actually know how to write code. So they're not amateurs. So who's behind this is, of course, there's like, you could ask like, who's Lazarus, right? This is basically North Korea's state-backed hacking team. They have been behind some of the biggest hacks in crypto, hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions for Bybit. I believe like a lot of that fund was recovered by Bybit as well. But like over the years, they have stolen $7 billion in crypto. That is, of course, a lot of money. Now, bring this to the day. The recent hack that happened, we cover that on Roxham TV as well. Of course, Drift Protocol being on Solana, and other DAX on Solana. So the reason one is around $285 million. Investigators say this is a good chance it is actually linked to North Korea. And here's what's new. The people involved in meetings were not even North Korean. They were third-party actors with fully built identities, real-looking careers, and real networks. So this operation is a full thing. It's not just hacking anymore. It's actually infiltration. Before, the threat was external. Hackers attacking the system, but right now, the threat is more internal, like inside your team, inside your code base. That is much harder to detect and much harder to stop. Now, some experts are saying this is not super advanced, like at least not the hiring part. Like you create the fake profiles, fake resumes, and these are the basic tactics. And of course, right now with AI, like building some fake resumes, it actually just takes a few seconds to do it. It's not difficult. But the difference is consistencies. They keep trying. They are very determined because that is the culture of North Korean state-backed hacking team, I suppose. Like they keep trying again and again and again until one of these projects work, until they finally hacked the platform from the outside. It doesn't have to be from internally. So they are doing externally at the same time also internally. And when it works, the impact is massive. So take a look at these figures. So Road and Bridge, that happened in 2022, another $625 million hacked. Bybit, of course, the largest one ever. So this resume from the North Korean group is actually very, very impressive, not gonna lie. And the real risk here, because once someone is inside, like again, as I mentioned, they are doing this internally. So North Korean, or not necessarily North Korean, but like North Korean state-supported groups being hired internally and also externally attacking these platforms. But like once someone is being hired inside the company, they can access system, they can understand architecture and find weakness or prepare attacks months in advance. So the hack you see today may have started like a year ago. This raises a huge issue. Like a lot of DeFi projects are small teams. They are remote teams and move fast because they are startup, right? Which means hiring checks are really weak. Security processes are weaker and trust is often given too easily because these systems are not truly decentralized. They still rely on people, like they have teams, they have access points. And if you compromise those, you compromise the entire system and the entire crypto project. So this is not just about North Korean. This is about how fragile the system is. If a nation state can get hired, build trust, and operate inside projects for years, then the risk is becoming bigger than just one hack. So the bottom line is this is not just a cyber crime. This is actually a strategy, very long term, very patient, and very effective indeed. All right, so we'll take a short break from here. When we come back, we are diving our tools into crypto. So we mentioned about Iran, so the Strait of Hormuz earlier in today's show, but like one interesting dynamic that we witness is that they are start taking crypto for wherever there is ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is an interesting dynamic. So do stay with us after the break.
This is Alex. Alex spends most of his time thinking like a trader, still deciding what to do with his Bitcoin. While Alex waits for the perfect entry, this is Laura. She's watching the S&P drop. Everyone is suddenly a macro expert. She doesn't panic. This is Tom. No screens, no noise, no stress. While Tom focuses on his swing, his Bitcoin focuses on compounding. Because Bitcoiners don't want more dollars. They want more Bitcoin.
I want more Bitcoin.
The best move is letting your Bitcoin work while you plan the next one. Grow by Roxum. One currency, one place.
Oh, I forgot to mention, dividends on Roxome are paid in Bitcoin. Stretch your income, 11.5% paid in Bitcoin.
Stretch your income to 11.5, get 11.5 in Bitcoin and Roxum. 11.5%. 11.5%.
All right, welcome back to Roxum TV, and thanks for sticking around with us after the break. We're now diving into our global oil supply and also crypto, because this is not just about money. This is about how the global system might be changing. So what just happened is that there's news came out, a new report that Iran is now charging ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Here's the key part. Some of that payment is using cryptocurrency. So that is an interesting dynamic. We're talking about stablecoins like Tether, also payments in Chinese yuan. So not dollars, of course. We're talking about Iran here at the end of the day. So not dollars, no banks involved, not the traditional system. So how this system works is that right now is that ships don't just pass freely. They are checked. They are rated, given what's called a friendliest score. Then they receive a passcode. So passcode, and when they and then they get escorted through the strait, but only after they pay. So of course, like selected countries are being passed, protected, especially from like Chinese ships. Really depends on the country. So of course, US friendly countries, then maybe it's taking a little bit more time. So reports say up to $2 million per tanker. Of course, this is not small money. This is serious cash flow for Iran to keep the war ongoing. More ships are starting to move again. Traffic is, of course, increasing, so still far below normal levels, about 90% lower than before the war. So the ships that are moving are paying to move. The payment system is the real story. like these payments are happening outside the US financial system. So of course, no SWIFT involved, no banks, no traditional control points. Stablecoins move directly wallet to wallet. Yuan payments avoid the dollar system completely. So this creates a parallel system running alongside a traditional one. The US sanctions like rely on like key idea, like the dollar system is unavoidable. If you want to move money globally, you must go through it. But right now, Iran is testing that assumption because like the situation got so worse already, might as well. They are collecting payments without touching the dollar system at all. And two very important signals. Like first, the energy market is under pressure. Ships are willing to pay extra just to keep oil flowing into the country. Second, stablecoins are no longer just crypto tools. They are real payment systems, like being used in high risk and real world situations. But let's not forget, stablecoins are still controlled by a few companies. We talk about Tether, USDT, and also USDC by Circle. And USDC is, of course, very much an American company. They are not decentralized at all. That means funds can still be frozen, transactions can still be blocked, and there is still control from the top. So even this new system is not fully independent. So now, what's next? Like it leads to a much bigger question. If countries want to avoid control, what is the next step? Everything I'll say eventually leads to Bitcoin. That sounds like an ultimate answer to me. Maybe I'm too biased. Bitcoin removes the middleman. It has no issuer, no control, like no central control. No one can just freeze it, and not even any governments in this world. That makes it very different because this is not just about Iran. This is about global financial system. If oil can move outside the dollar system using like crypto rails, then sanctions become weaker, control becomes weaker. And if this moves from stable coins to fully decentralized money like Bitcoin, then control doesn't just weaken, it actually disappears completely. So what we're seeing here is the early stage of a new financial system, one that runs in parallel, faster, harder to control, and possibly much bigger than people expect. So speaking of Bitcoin, let's do a quick price analysis. We're not going to spend too much time on charts today because I did another chart analysis on yesterday's show as well. But like I'm just here to address some of the basically the questions that the community might have when looking at charts like this. So we are right now sitting at 68.6K. It's just like bouncing off at the key level that we drew. So well, actually, let me pull out another chart. So that was the weekly chart we're looking at here. But like we do have another one that we point out to the community on yesterday's show. So like let's use the Coinbase one. So there you go. So let's hop from weekly to daily chart, daily candle. So we are at the end of the day just bouncing off in this like key consolidation period. Zooming out, like this is like nothing too serious. We just like whenever we touch the resistance, we get rejected. And then whenever we touch the support trend, we just like we end up like bouncing off at the key level support. So this is basically what I call a kangaroo market. Like not much is happening, but like it looks like it's bouncing up, but at the end of the day, it looks just like another bear flag for me. But anyways, this is just like the daily candle, daily chart. As long as we're holding above these daily RSIs or daily RSIs going up. So if we manage to hold above this key level, then this like consolidation period while slowly moving up going to continue. So like looking at the bigger picture, so from a weekly time frame, so a longer time frame, if we look at the weekly candles, you will soon realize that the bottom is definitely not in. So higher probability the bottom is not in. Let's put it that way, okay? So what we're looking at here, is the weekly RSI. So what I've done here is whenever we drop the weekly RSI to basically below 30, so that happened only like 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, right now is the fourth time here. So we happened like 4 times in our entire history. So whenever we get we drop low enough on the RSI, if we zoom closer and if we look at the price action, you'll find like most of the occasion, I'm not saying 100% of the time, most of the occasion, okay, here we dropped to below 30. That was in June 2022, but the cycle bottom, the absolute cycle bottom, only happened in late 2020, so a few months later. So in other words, like we have, okay, maybe the RSI on the weekly, we have dropped low enough. That was in February 2026, 2 months ago. However, it doesn't mean that the cycle bottom is in, because if we look at this in a previous cycle bottom is only in like a few months later after we found the bottom on the weekly RSI. Though this is not 100% accurate, because like if we look at December 2018, so we have found the bottom, right? So if we zoom closer, we have found the bottom on the RSI because it dropped below 30. But like this actually marks the cycle bottom rather well. So, and then we kind of like bounce back. We don't see as low as 3,000 anymore. But however, we look at January 2015, the pattern that I was saying play out again. So we have like the bottom on January 15, but the cycle bottom actually happened in August 15, so only a few months later. So point being, there are, well, let's go back. So point being, February, we have dropped low enough on the weekly RSI, but like there is no confirmation that the cycle bottom is in. So this is one. So let me close all the drawings, and then I'm going to pull out the Ishimoku cloud. So this is one indicators we could potentially bear in mind. But like another indicator that I like using, and it has never failed us, is Ishimoku cloud. So there are so many lines here. It looks a little bit confusing, but bear with us. So what I've got here is on the setting of the Ishimoku cloud. I've got the baseline, so the red line, and then we have the leading span A and leading span B. So leading span B is being the pink one. The pink region here is on top, but usually is, if it's a bullish market, then it will be at the bottom. So if we take a look, actually let's start with 2022. So here, so the baseline, usually it would go like how we could tell it's a cycle bottom is that the baseline, so focus on this red line on the top. So this baseline would go even below the price chart of Bitcoin. So price chart, it was right here. It was actually trading, basically trading above that baseline. That would mean that, okay, the cycle bottom has already happened. We're going up. But like right now, we are still not even close. So the baseline haven't even caught up with the price. So with the chart candles yet, that means like we haven't gone to the absolute cycle bottom. Because why I think this is so powerful, because historically speaking, the baseline have to go under the price action for us to claim, okay, this is the bulls are finally in control. And same for 2015. So if we take a look at the baseline, we have to go under the price action, the price candles chart for us to claim, okay, the bulls are finally in control. We are in a bullish momentum. This is what we need to see. So, but if we zoom closer to this cycle, and by the way, like this, the indicator hasn't failed us. That's why I'm watching the Ishimoku cloud very closely. So if we zoom closer to this cycle, you will soon realize that the baseline is still very much above the price. Right now, sitting at $68,000. So 28%. So there's still like a huge difference. Or if you drop, okay, so 22%, sorry. So 22% difference, we have to keep dropping. So that means we are not low enough and the bottom is likely not in. But anyways, like combining these two, so daily, like we're looking at the shorter time frame, and weekly, of course, like cycle bottom is not in. If we combine those information together, like you can use the daily for trading because like there are some key levels that you could trade. Basically, we're just bouncing inside this bear flag. That's like a channel. And if we take a look at the percentage wise, so if we take the bottom to the top, it's like a 15% difference. So if you guys are into trading, there's very much very profitable trade I'm seeing. However, I'm watching out these levels. So if we lose this line completely, so if there are like 2 or 3 daily candles closing below the support trend and also closing below the daily RSI, then this relief rally is completely gone. So this is the risk of trading. But regardless, as a good trader, you need to be prepared for either scenarios to play out because no one has a crystal ball, and that's why you need to be prepared or maybe hash your position if you haven't already. All right, so that was the price update for Bitcoin. Let's hop on to some Ponzi scheme I want to talk about. This sounds really complex. But once you break it down, it's actually really simple. So what just happened is that Gemini just reviewed new details in its official filings, and the internet is reacting really fast. Some people are calling this a legal Ponzi. Now, that's a really strong claim. So let's break it down clearly. So here's how the system works for Gemini. Like for step 1, the founders private company lends crypto to Gemini. Step 2 is that Gemini would take that crypto and use it as collateral to borrow USD from other firms. Step 3, Gemini used that cash to run their business. So money is moving, but it's moving in a loop inside the same system because this creates dependency. Gemini depends on its own founders for liquidity. And here's the risk. If the founders pull the funds back, the system could face pressure very quickly. And the numbers are huge we're talking about. So we're talking about thousands of BTC still owned to the founders, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And that money can be requested back at any time. This is where things get very controversial. Like when Gemini went public, regular investors bought shares at full price, so around $28 per share. But the founders, they converted the debt into shares at a 20% discount. So in other words, they paid less but got more power. And this kind of power, basically like special voting shares, super voting shares, that means they control the company even after going public. In fact, they control almost all voting power, over 90%. And this does matter because in theory, public companies should be owned by shareholders, but in this case, control still stay with the founders. So investors bought in, but they didn't really gain control. The market has not been kind to Gemini stocks exchange. The stocks actually have dropped very heavily down. So past year is down 88% since listing, from over $30 and to just like a few dollars right now, so $4.35. Major banks are now saying like sell Gemini if you hold that in your portfolio, and there are of course lawsuits starting to appear for Gemini as well. So let's step back for a second. This is not just one company. This is about trust in the system because crypto was supposed to be transparent, was supposed to be decentralized and fair. But here we have seeing structures that look very similar to traditional finance. So it's very complex, very connected, and sometimes conflicting interests. So the question we're asking here, we have this article called The Legal Ponzi. A lot of people are asking, so what they do between Gemini and also the founders' own money, is that even legal? Well, the simple answer is that, well, right now it is legal, like the structure is completely legal because auditors signed off on it. But like, it doesn't mean it's completely safe, even though it's legal. The real risk is alignment. Are the founders acting in the best interest of users or in their own interest? Because when those two don't match, that's when problems start. And this connects to a bigger theme we keep seeing: centralized platforms with complex structures and hidden risk, even in crypto. So the bottom line is, this is not necessarily a scam. I'm not calling the Winklevoss brothers scams. Please don't take out of the context. This is I would say it's the whole system that depends heavily on trust. And when trust breaks, markets react really fast. So do let me know in the comments if you like this setup from Gemini, or if you're avoiding the stocks completely at this point. Anyway, so that's pretty much all I want to cover in today's show. But before you go, make sure to give us a follow on Twitter or maybe X if you call it that. So my personal Twitter is jamjamcrypto_IO. Make sure to follow Roxham TV as well, because we have very valuable content, valuable news coming out on an hourly basis. So make sure to give us a follow. As for my show, I'm live Monday through Friday, starting at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, tomorrow I'll be back at my usual studio. This week we're just taking a Easter break at home, but of course, news don't stop. That's why I'm still breaking down news for you every single day here. So anyways, I'll see you